Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing super well and that your May vibes are simply immaculate. I know that boba is currently undergoing a shortage, which is unfortunate, but we'll get through it. More on that on a later video. Do you guys want to see that? I don't know. Let me know. Anyway, like and subscribe to the video, by the way. If you're on YouTube, hit the follow button on Spotify. Shameless plug, hee. Anyway, this is always my favorite time of the year, knowing that school will be over soon and that the weather is at its peak of not being super hot, but not being cold either. So it's great, and your boy can't complain. But he can bitch about calculus, so fuck calculus. Anyway, I don't know how many of you saw the little teaser Instagram story that I put out earlier this week, but this is a podcast I've been looking forward to for a very long time, and one that is super exciting, and I can't wait for you all to see. This week, I got the chance to chat with Varun Ram, who is one of the OG Indian American ballers that made it, meaning that he was one of only a few Indian American players, or players of Indian descent, who got to compete at the highest of levels in the NCAA. But his story is one that is super inspiring and one that goes through a lot of ups and downs, which leads me to my essential question of the day. Can basketball dreams come true? We talk about all sorts of things in regards to Varun's story, from the beginnings to high school ball through Division III, and staying hopeful and confident the whole time, even though everything seemed to be working against him. Even if you don't know basketball all that well, this is a great chat because it really focuses on a theme of hard work, perseverance, and reaching your ultimate goals. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. So without further ado, introducing Varun Ram. Cue it up. Coming to you live from my parents' house, we got episode 21 of the Essential Question podcast. And today I'm honored to be joined by the OG Brown baller himself, Varun Ram. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's great to meet you. So I'm happy to be on. Thanks for reaching out and excited to do this.
Yeah, of course. Well, for those of you that don't know, Vern's going to explain his whole story because it's pretty freaking crazy. But the essential question that we have today is, can basketball dreams really come true? And, well, I guess in short, the answer is yes, because Vern is sitting right here. But yeah, like, how's it going? What have you been up to recently?
It's good, man. I mean, all things considered, with the the pandemic and everything that's going on. I mean, in India, family in India, it's like things are going pretty well as well as they can, and hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel. Folks are getting vaccinated, so that all things considered, things are going really well. I have been working remote, so working remote, finding ways to stay in shape, which has just been ingrained in me from a young age. Still, hooping when I can, and no, all things are well.
That's good. Good to hear. Are you still just like, do you play pickup casually now? Like now that you have more time, maybe like just to blow off steam, just like go out, shoot hoops?
Oh, absolutely. It's like I'm always going to be playing pickup. And I think I was very fortunate to have like during not really in the middle of the pandemic, but towards the end, we had a group of guys that were, we were pretty close knit, and we were, pretty careful about how we went about our lives. So we had like a core group of guys that would play pickup regularly outside. Again, it was just something that I think we all needed to do for our mental health. And it's something, all of us grow up playing basketball, and it's just like a great way to stay in shape, but also like, socialize, in a relatively safe way. And hooping is like, I'll still go and like work on my game as if like I'm getting ready for a season. Mm-hmm. Like that'll never leave me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, once a baller, always a baller, I guess, right? You want to kind of give like the 2-sentence summary as to who you are, because people are probably really confused why we're talking about basketball.
Yeah. So I grew up in Maryland. My dream was, I don't know, this is not maybe 2 sentences, but like maybe like 1 minute summary. So my dream was to play college, but I wanted to play in the Ivy League. For me, like growing up, like academics was very important. It was instilled in me at a young age, like a lot of, brown families, so
sure.
brown children. So I took that upon myself. I wanted to do well in academics, but I also had this like weird dream of playing basketball that like was not fostered by my parents at all. It's something that it was my thing. And I was like, how can I really like optimize on both of those things? And for me, like Ivy League basketball was like that thing, right? It was like the highest academics and Division I basketball, a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. So that was my dream. Unfortunately, growing up in the suburbs, being 5'9" and, undersized and, had a lot of things going against me. I didn't get recruited by any of the schools. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll try to get into the schools and walk on. And that didn't happen. I got rejected from every single school on the same day. Like, and like all my dreams were shattered. And then, I mean, it's a long story, but it eventually ended up going to Trinity College for a year after doing a postgraduate year in Massachusetts. And then it was a great league, Division III league, very competitive. But then ultimately just made sense to come back home to my home state, go to the University of Maryland. And then, folks were telling me my basketball career was over. There's no chance that you would ever play on the Maryland basketball team. It's a high major. At that time, we were ACC, playing the Dukes and the North Carolinas of the world. And and I was like, I completely understand what they were saying, but I would be remiss if I didn't do everything in my power to even just try to make it on the team. And it was a super long journey and roller coaster, but eventually clawed my way into a walk-on spot, earned a scholarship, got to start a game in my career, play in the NCAA tournament, and play with some amazing players and great coaching staff and in front of some amazing fans. I would say, obviously I'm biased, but I think the University of Maryland, the Xfinity Center is one of the most premier athletic arenas to ever play a sport in. So it was incredible.
I've never been out to the Xfinity Center, so maybe I got to come check it out for myself. But I mean, you basically just summarized the whole podcast there in a minute. So that was pretty cool. But I was going to ask you, I was like, do you remember kind of the first time you ever picked up a basketball? Like what age and like, how did it feel?
Yeah, it was, I don't remember exactly, but I remember I had one of those little tyke hoops, like little Tyson little tyke hoops, like the orange ones, and like in my basement. I think like a family friend got it for me at a young age, and like he had like jokingly, he was like I took a shot like with a little rubber ball. He's like, oh, like you're like Michael Jordan, and I was like, Michael Jordan, me? And then I think ever since then I was like, this is a lot of fun. I would start to shoot around on that, and then that's where the love of the game really started, like that little Tykes hoop, that rubber ball, and then was play outside and on like in the cul-de-sac with my friends, and then I was lucky enough to have an indoor gym right by my house, and I think that's where I cultivated the love for the game, and that was like my earliest memory.
Yeah. So like how did that, like, how are you attracted to the sport of basketball? Like, is it like a meditation? Like, cause I know a lot of athletes talk about like how they can just like let everything around them escape when they just like are playing the game. Is it like that for you?
I mean, there's so many things that drew me to basketball. I mean, number one, it was just like, it was an escape. It was kind of like my thing. Like none of my family friends, like, really played basketball. My family, obviously they didn't encourage it, but it was like one thing that like I did, and it was like my thing. So I kind of, I felt like it was like an outlet for me. It was also just like social avenue. Like growing up, most of my friends came from basketball, and I think it was a great way. Like it just teaches you so many things, like how to interact with people, how to work hard, toward the skill, how to lose and get back up, how to win with humility in class. There's so many things that I learned. But I think the number one thing I really liked about it was the ability to see progress in your game. Like I saw, like, if I practice ball handling for, X number, if I practice a certain move for, a couple of days or a couple of weeks, whatever it is, I saw improvement. And it's really cool to be able to like work on something and see that like one-to-one improvement. And that kind of inspired me, like, hey, like how far can I take this? It's like, if I work hard. And that was one thing I prided myself on. Like I wasn't talented. I was so bad. I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the strongest. But I think like, I just prided myself on like working harder than everyone else around me. And I think that's kind of what helped me.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. Like, so many like kids, cause I grew up like St. Thing suburbs, a lot of kids just love playing basketball, shooting hoops, but they were like, and I'm 6'5". So like I get crapped on all the time. They're all like, dude, if I had your height, dude, I'd be at Duke, like balling on guys. And I'm like, bruh, come on now. Like,
it's easy to say. It's easy to say.
I know, right? I don't know. Okay. But like, definitely uncoordination comes with like tall people. It's just a fact, especially like when you're younger. But like, yeah. So I'm 6'5" and I get crapped on, and I'm like, I'm like,
no, and it's funny you say that, because like it's definitely not easy. Like when you, like, especially if you like are tall, to your point, when you're younger, that coordination is so hard to get. It's almost like the folks like the Michael Carter Williams, or like the guys that are like, point guards growing up, and then they had this, or Anthony Davis, and they have this like growth spurt in like high school or college, and all of a sudden they're like 6'5" or 7 feet tall. Like those are the guys that have like the best advantage, because they learn all the ball handling skills. Like it's like And then they get tall and long. And it's like, that's like unfair. Like Kevin Durant. I mean, he was always
No, like the thing, I've always had this theory, right? Because like usually like guys who are like 6'5", 6'6", like growing up in like the kind of these like suburban neighborhoods, they're the tallest kid on the block. So like they're forced to play like center, power forward. And then like when you get to like the higher leagues, like they're like play like that's an average height of a point guard. So it's like, I don't know how to handle the ball anymore. Like, how do you want me to play? Like,
you're telling me I gotta bring the ball up the court?
Yeah, it's like, bro. Yeah, I've never handled a ball. Like all I do is just put it in the hoop. Like, so yeah, I mean that's always the theory I've had. That's why we don't get more, setters from the burbs, I guess. But yeah. So like, because I know like we all had our players that we would try to like emulate growing up. The classic Kobe. Try to throw the thing into the trash. So like, who are some of the players and athletes that you kind of looked up to and imitated as a kid, so to speak, when you were kind of first exposed to basketball?
Yeah, well, funny enough, Kobe was not one of those guys. Like the one thing I resonated about with Kobe was just his work ethic and his relentless spirit to win. Like I thought that was cool, but like it's hard, like as a little Indian boy, to like relate to someone that's like big, strong athlete, like even Jordan, like, those guys. So like I really enjoyed watching like Nate Robinson, obviously. Watching highlights of Muggsy Bogues, like the little guys. Spud Webb, Earl Boykins, like those guys that, people don't even remember it. But then also I really like Steve Nash. Like I grew up watching like the Phoenix Suns with him, like Raja Bell, Amari Stoudemire. I don't know if you remember those teams.
Yeah, of course.
But they were, and Steve Nash, like, they would always talk about the announcers who were like, oh, he's not the most athletic. He's not the, biggest and strongest, but like, he was just so skilled and so smart and the way he like, and so I would just try to emulate him and be like, okay, this is how he moves. This is what the moves he makes. This is how he sees the floor. And it was really fun watching that team. But then Steve Nash, like I know he was still like 6'4" or 6'3", he's still like a taller, relatively tall point guard, but he wasn't like athletically gifted. And so I kind of took that. I was like, wow, like your skill can really take you a long way. So I really try to like break his game down. And then obviously Allen Iverson, like he was just electric, man, like a small guard, but like could just like he was the franchise player,
Yeah, that's a little beyond my era, AI, but I've always watched the highlights. Like the highlights are sick. I mean, when he's stepping over Tyronn.
Oh my God. Yeah,
I couldn't imagine watching that live. I feel like that'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. AI is great. So like you talked about like, well, actually like I kind of have a connection to Steve Nash, which is kind of cool. Well, he went to college out in Santa Clara, which is literally like 20 minutes from my house. And and my history teacher in high school, his dad coached him. So like, so it was kind of cool. Like he would tell us stories about like how like, about Steve Nash and like coaching him in college and how his dad coached him in college and all that stuff. So it was cool. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I think they beat Arizona in the NCAA tournament. They had like a crazy upset. They were like the 15 and they beat the second seeded Wildcats. So
I'm not surprised. I don't remember that. I don't think I watched that.
Yeah,
game.
That's beyond both of us, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Steve Nash. So like how did your parents kind of take this liking to basketball? Like we're both Brown. We know how it is, it's like doctor, engineer comes first. Yep. Was it something they kind of supported always? They were like, oh, go pursue your passion, or were like they kind of pushing you like, doctors make a lot of money. Like, what was that like?
Well, they always saw it as like they were the ones that put me in like my first basketball league, my recreational basketball league. And they they never like inhibited me or prohibited me from playing, but they I think they saw the passion that I had for it. And they were like, listen, as long as you're getting the grades that you need, you're not getting in trouble in school. And like, as long as those two boxes were checked, they were like, you can kind of do whatever you want in your free time. So I was very fortunate, to have them in that regard. And like, they would obviously take me to practices and like tournaments on weekends and that sort of thing. So they were always supportive, I think, but they were never like, oh, you should go practice or you should go do this. It was just like, I think they saw that I took that initiative on my own and how much love I had for it. And so they, once they saw that, then they maybe started to push me a little bit. Where it kind of got tricky was like around my senior year of high school, when like I was like, listen, I'm not going to school unless I'm playing basketball. It was kind of like my mentality to them. They're like, why don't you just apply to school? Basketball's been great. You played in high school. You had a great career. Like, at some point you have to, think about what you want to do after basketball. And I just wasn't hearing any of that. And so we kind of clashed a little bit with that. And like, my mom was actually really helpful in trying to like help me get recruited. I remember we put together like 25 different like packages to send to schools and coaches. Like highlights, like a letter recommendation from my coach, like just like, a letter from me, just like a whole package that we submitted 25 schools, like didn't hear back from like any of them, but she was like very helpful in that. And so I think she just really wanted to support my passion, which was really nice. But again, like if my grades were slipping, that would have never been a question. Like as long as that was, going on, and I was not getting in trouble, then they were supportive.
Yeah, I mean, that's good that you had kind of like that support. It wasn't like completely anti or anything. So
Exactly.
that's good that you had that. So like I know you were talking about like junior senior year, you kind of had that clash with your parents. Was that kind of like the first time where it clicked in your head, like I want to play basketball on the highest level?
I think it was actually around like middle school. I just remember like I played on some like travel teams, and like I wasn't the best on the team, but like I just knew that I loved the game, and like I was like, I don't know, maybe it was just like an inner competitiveness, but I was like, I remember like just sitting there and like pondering to myself as like a sixth grader, like how can I separate myself from the competition? Like what can I do to like just get better? Like why am I not good? And I remember like watching like Steve Nash. Like I remember he had this was like, I don't know if YouTube was like starting to blow up then, but like I remember there was all the NBA players have like their summer camps for like the elite high school players. And they did like a 10-minute video on like the Steve Nash Point Guard Skills Academy. I remember he had like a quote in there, and he was like asking the point guards, this is probably like the Kemba Walkers, like all the guys that were getting, that were getting invited to those camps. But he was like, what are you guys doing every single day to get better? Like I this might sound weird, but I asked myself, am I like pushing myself? Am I like almost going to the point where I'm like hurting myself every single day to get outside my comfort zone and get better? Right. And like I was like a little sixth grader listening to this. I was like, wow, like that's the level of commitment and spirit that he has for getting better. It's like that's what I want. And so like I think all these like pieces were just and I was like, yeah, it just made sense. Like this is so. I think that was when sixth grade, seventh grade, I was like, that's when I really wanted to. I was playing soccer too, so I was like, I'm just gonna focus on basketball. I put that aside. I was like, this is my goal, is to play Division I basketball. And that was probably around the time when I got really serious.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's for a lot of athletes, like it starts early, like when they realize like, oh crap, like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, you just kind of know, like, put in the work, and that's just what you love to do. Do you think, or like, I know you talked a lot about like how your mom helped you with those like highlight tapes and hoop mixtapes, the OG hoop mixtapes. Yeah. So like, were there like a few mentors or advisors in your life that really like supported you like throughout your kind of basketball journey, and like talk about them? Like, what was that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say like as encouraging as my parents were, like they just didn't know like what is AAU basketball, what is basketball, how do we like support. I think a lot of Indian parents actually go through that, because I've had folks reach out to me and like, hey, like my daughter is very interested in basketball, I just don't know how to help them and guide them. And so they're like, can you so I think our parents, it's not something that a lot of them have grown up with. So I say that because there were like other teammates on my my travel teams that had parents that really like took an interest in me and said, hey, like we understand you love basketball, and like they would help me in terms of like taking me to tournaments, like helping me with like the going to schools, whatever it is. They took a liking in me and really helped and supported like my parents and myself. But then also I had some really good coaches. I had an AAU coach that had just a huge imprint on like I was playing actually rec ball in like fifth grade, and like he saw me at like a tournament. It was like, hey, why don't you come join my team? And he could tell like I just love basketball so much. I was just so like unrefined of a player. Like I was, but he could just tell the passion was there. And so he kind of took me in. His name's Bill Napolitano, and he was kind of like the driving force behind like when I kind of like took my game probably to the next level, when I started to be competitive enough to make the high school team, and then think that I can play in college. But he just was such a selfless, like caring guy, and he has such a love for the game growing up himself, and he saw that passion that I had in the game, and wanted to help steer me. So without him, I don't think I would have been able to play high school or college basketball.
For sure.
But yeah, I had some really good coaches, not just him, but some others as well. That it's not like I could have done this by myself. I had a lot of support.
Absolutely. I mean, like I get you when you're saying like, like any parents just like don't know what like the best way to support is, because I mean, like I don't blame them, they like immigrated to this country. It's like everything's all brand new, and you like tell them I want to go play basketball. They're like, wait, what? Like, like they're confused. So like I get why, you need other definitely mentors and people to guide you through kind of like the more technical stuff when it comes to basketball, for sure.
You're right.
Yeah. So like this is a very interesting question, and something I've thought a lot about, right? So Indian American kids are like the biggest sports fans I've ever met in my life, right? Like they love hoops. They like consume all NBA, all NFL content. But they don't play at the highest level. Like, why do you think this is? Like, why? How can we get more brown guys and brown girls like competing at the highest levels, like, you know, the NBA, WNBA?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say, based on my experience, I think we're trending in that direction. Honestly, I think you come from a, you know, again, it goes, I think, back to our parents. They don't. It's not necessarily something that they grew up with, so they don't maybe push it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't put their children in situations that, like, I know, you know, other parents that maybe, you know, they might put their children in athletics in a younger age, or might guide them or steer them, which can sometimes be good and bad, because then, you know, as a child, if your parents telling you to do something, you kind of want to push back. But
Right.
I think you see that. You know, there's also that argument that, like, oh, maybe genetically there's something out there, you know, why, you know, Indian folks
Mm-hmm.
are not as athletic. I don't really necessarily agree with that. I think, first of all, there's like billions of us.
I know, right?
I think we
Literally.
have some athletes in our, you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think a lot of it. I think you're going to see more of it. I mean, there's already more Indian Americans playing college basketball than ever before. You know,
Awesome.
we don't have our like Michael Jordan, we don't have our Yao Ming
Yeah.
necessarily yet, but I think, you know, I think it's not long before we have, you know, an Indian player, American Indian, maybe even in the NBA.
That's gonna be amazing when that
Yeah,
happens.
I think it's happening. I think it's just the environment that, like, there's no, like, and it's like you go to India, but they, like, and there's folks that have a passion for basketball too out there, but like you don't have like like, you know, I bet like you and I, we probably have like 4 or 5 courts within like a 5 mile radius
Right.
outdoor,
Yeah.
indoor courts, and like we have access to that, but not everyone
Mm-hmm.
really has that. And like even me, I think I have a gym like right, like 400, you know, meters from my house, and it's like if I didn't have that, I don't know if I would have had the resources to, you know, improve my game as much as I loved it. If I didn't have it, it would have maybe, you know,
Yeah.
not been as easy. So I think that's the thing. But again, I think you're going to start to see more and more Indian Americans or Indians
Yeah.
playing sports, not just basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You know
yeah.
any Indian American like basketball players in the NCAA we should look out for? Like
Yeah,
that
so
you.
there's a few. I haven't kept in touch with some of the more recent guys. I do know that there's a guy who I haven't met him, but his name is Ryan Agrawal. I think
I've
he's,
heard about him. Yeah,
yeah.
he's like a big deal. Like he was on the ESPN's top 100 and stuff. Like,
Yeah. I don't
yeah.
know a lot about him. I have a mentor of mine that was like, hey, you know, you can check out this kid, and he signed with Stanford. I'm actually heading out there in a few months, so I'll probably run into him.
Yeah.
And actually, I just talked to Coach Churgeon at Maryland, and he was like, you know, if you want me to put you in touch with the coach at Stanford, so you can go, you know, go to practice or a game or something, let me know. And I checked, and I was like, how does Coach Churgeon know him? And I know at that level, all of the, you know, Division I coaches know each
Yeah.
other. But I think Coach Churgeon played at Kansas, and I think their coach, I'm forgetting his name, also, you know, went to Kansas. So I think they have that like Kansas alumni
Okay. For
network.
sure.
But yeah, no, to your original question, I don't know off the top of my head,
Yeah.
outside of him a lot, but I know, like, in passing, I've definitely heard of other folks.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome, dude. Ryan Agarwal. We got to look out for this one. He's coming to the Bay too. So,
yeah,
you know, they're right here, 15 minutes away. So hold on. Where was I? Oh, okay. So in high school, right? We'll go back to when you were in high school. You were one of the top players in your county, right? You won like you got on the all county team, I believe, like all
mhm,
districts, something like that. And you
right.
were winning like numerous all county awards, all these things. But you got like, and you mentioned this earlier, you kind of got no offers or like no interest. What was that experience like? Because that was like one of your first initial kind of setbacks.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I think when you know, Howard County, that, you know, where I'm from, is like, it's not necessarily known as a hotbed of basketball. Like, so it's like, even if you have success in Howard County, it's hard to get looks. I think it's especially like most of recruiting nowadays happens on the AAU circuit, right? It's not
Mm,
really happening in high school. So all the looks I got were really from playing AAU basketball. I was actually on the coach that I told you, that had, Bill Napolitano, that
yeah.
had, so we played on a team of like a bunch of, like, you know, we were kind of like the Spurs. We had like international, but like I was Indian. We had like, Caucasian, and we had like Asian. We had like
Yeah.
all sorts of like ethnicities, nationalities on
Right.
our team. We, like, teams would look at us when we go to these tournaments and be like, oh, who are those guys? Like, you know, they would look at us in warm ups and like laugh at us, and then like we would beat them by 20. And so like our last year of AAU was like 17U AAU nationals. We went to Florida, and we ended up placing third in the country. You know, behind, I forgot, it was like there's a couple, you know, I forgot who came in first and second, but we came in third. And our last game we beat, I remember Andre Drummond's team.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just, and there was tons of coaches. And actually after that tournament, I started to get some Division I interest. Unfortunately, none of those kind of turned into offers.
Yeah.
But that was actually when I got that interest, that's how I was able to convince my parents, like, hey, like, I have a chance, like, let me go to prep school, not go to college right after I graduated. And then, again, those things fell through, but yeah.
So like, I presume you've played against some NBA players and some, like, on the AAU circuit. What was that like? Was like Andre Drummond as big as he is now?
Oh my God, he's ginormous. And not only that, I don't think people realize like how athletic he is. Like he can jump like out of the gym. Like he actually has handle. Like he's people don't realize that NBA players, like the bigs, are like very skilled. They're not just like, like like they're very good and athletic. And I remember like it just like it's I have a picture. I don't know where it is, but I have a picture of like him, like he was doing like a gather dribble. And so he kind of did like he was maybe like, just a couple inches off, like in the air. And I was like on the ground, and I literally was like at his kneecap. Like, it was just like, he was so big. And that's the type of, player that you like, you can play basketball in your backyard, you can play at the gym, but you don't find guys like that very often. And so when you get an opportunity to play against them in AAU, it really puts things in perspective, but it's just so much fun to compete at that level with those, caliber players.
Yeah. You play against any other guys like Andre Drummond, or was it just
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just I'm blanking on. I mean, in terms of like bigs or like guards,
just like players in general.
Yeah, I mean, we played against like D'Angelo Russell. I remember when he was at Ohio State, and Aaron Craft, like those Ohio State teams. We played. Who were the guys? Like I actually didn't play against Duke, but Quinn Cook, those guys. There's a ton of players I can't even remember. Although I will say, I remember one of the toughest players that I had to guard was we played Shabazz Napier and Ryan Bowen in that UConn team. Yeah. And I remember that I only played like maybe like a minute or something that game, but I guarded like Ryan Boatwright and I think switched on to Shabazz for a couple possessions. Like those guys are like legit. I remember thinking like, wow. But I also had the opportunity to like play against like Melo Trimble, and like there's like some NBA caliber guys like at practice every single day.
Right.
And that I kind of treated practice like games too, and as an opportunity to challenge them and get better and try to make them better. But it's just so fun to compete at that level. I think that's what I miss the most, honestly, is like you might play like one or two guys if you go play pickup that are like at, maybe somewhere to that level. But when you're playing like in college basketball and you're playing, at a Maryland type school, like all 10 players on the floor are like elite. And it's like, there's no weaknesses. Like,
there's a reason they're there.
Like they were all the best players in their high school, in their counties, in their states. And it's like, to get all those players on the floor, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. But we're going to talk about Maryland later, because I'm sure you have some crazy stories there. But after high school, you were mentioning you kind of went off to this, the PostGrad prep school, which is something it's pretty unconventional. I haven't really heard of it. So like kind of explain like what that experience was like at prep school, and like how, it was kind of one of the sort of like quote unquote last ways to try to get that D1 scholarship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. It's definitely unconventional. It's a little bit more conventional for like hockey, and especially in the New England area. I know there are some prep schools out west, but it's very, very common in the Northeast for hockey. But so I went, and a lot of times it's a lot of, like, it'll be guys that already have like offers, but they couldn't qualify academically, so they'll do a post-grad year, get their grades up, and then go. But other times it'll be like my case where you're just trying to give yourself another year to get another look. I was also younger. I had skipped a grade. So I felt that had, helped convince my parents that, I wasn't like wasting a year of my life. But I really thought like the prep schools, like I got the opportunity to play in like the #1 league. Actually Andre Drummond was in that league, like Damian Lee, Maurice Harkless. Like we had so many NBA players in that league. It was called the NEPSAC.
Okay. And they were still in high school at the time, like.
Yep, they were still in high school. Yep. Ricardo Lito, Georges Niang, like Wayne Selden. Like I remember, I mean, we played all those guys, and it was our team was probably in the bottom of the league, but I got to start and play a lot of minutes against like these like super high level guys. But so it was a great opportunity to just improve my game and get exposure. But it is an unconventional process. I kind of think of it as like a coming of age for me, because like growing up, it was a boarding school. So I went out, it was the first time leaving home, going to Massachusetts, and then like living on my own. It was like super strict curfew. Like they had like lights out by 10 p.m.
Oh,
You had
wow.
to go. Yeah, I remember like in high school, I would like go to bed like 1, 2 a.m. Like I would do homework. I was such a procrastinator.
Yeah.
I'd do homework until like 2 a.m. and I wake up at 7, go to school. I was always like perpetually tired. But like here, it actually taught me a lot of discipline because like you have to go to bed at 10. So we'd have like the basketball team would have like workouts at like 5 a.m. So you wake up and you have breakfast and you go to your class and you got to wear like a suit and like uniform. And
It was just very professional.
Yeah, and I learned a lot. And it was a really small school. I went to a school called Winchendon. It was like 200 kids, and so growing up, I was in a very competitive high school where like there were so many smart people. I just felt like such a small fish. I can relate.
Yeah.
It's like I just felt so dumb like in front of these kids were, but it was great also just to learn from them. But in this environment, like I felt like more of a bigger fish in a small pond. So it really just helped me like self-confidence and also again another year to improve my game. And the only reason I was honestly able to convince my parents to do this is because I got interest from some schools, actually like to Dartmouth and Brown, after that summer run that I told you where we placed third in the country, 17 UAU nationals. They were like, hey, like we want to recruit you, but you already graduated. It's too late. Go to prep school and we'll pull you in. We'll recruit you. And so literally it was like I forgot who it was from Brown. And there was a couple of coaches from Dartmouth that were like calling me that summer saying like, hey, you should go to this prep school, And so, I went to find a prep school, went there, and then like they kind of just stopped recruiting me. It was really tough, but yeah, it wasn't as common for for basketball, but definitely folks did it. So
yeah. That's kind of cool. I've never really like heard of like the whole like going to like doing that other year. I mean, the most common example I could think of is maybe like LaMelo Ball. He did like kind of something similar, but like it wasn't really like a postgrad type of thing. But yeah, I mean that's super cool, and I'm sure like that builds character for sure. I mean, like yeah. So I was reading some articles about you, and I found out that your sister's a John Hopkins grad, went to med school, doing super well for herself, which is amazing. So like, did you ever feel like you were in her shadow when you were trying to like pursue this dream of basketball, and she was, going to John Hopkins and just like, living the Brown dream? Yeah.
It's a good question. I actually never really thought of it like that. I was almost like really happy she was so successful because it almost like checked the box for my parents. Like they have a doctor in the family, so I was free to like, okay, I can do whatever I want then.
Like a coast.
So no, I never thought of it like that, but it was like, man, like she really had her ducks in a row. Like she had like internships, she was volunteering, I'm pretty sure like she got into every single like medical school she applied to, and like she was always one of those like good students. Awesome. And I was just like, dang, like she really has her stuff together, and I can't even like get like recruited to a college for basketball. Like what's going on? Like so, but I was always really really happy for her, but I think my parents supported us both equally, which was really really nice. Awesome. But now I was really happy that and I was also living vicariously through her. Like when at Maryland, I studied, and we can talk about it, but I studied physiology, neurobiology, so I was pre-med. But then kind of decided ultimately to go a different direction and get into business. But I always lived vicariously through her, and so I think it was actually a benefit to have her a couple years older than me going in this thing. So
yeah, that's awesome. Younger siblings for the win. Woo.
Yeah.
That's cool that you kind of I think you had the right mentality when it came to like your sister, just being happy for her and like kind of letting living vicariously like you were saying. That's awesome. So after prep school, you ended up transferring to Trinity College, like you mentioned, and this is Division III. I thought there was like there's like 4 Trinity colleges. Like I was like trying to look like which one it was. Like I was like, did Varun go to Ireland? Like, like did he go to Texas? Like I was confused, but I found out it was Connecticut. So at that point, like what was your mood? Like what was the goal at Trinity? What were you trying to do?
No, it was, I'll tell you, like when you're like for like your whole childhood trying to recruit schools to recruit you, or trying to recruit schools to give you a spot on the team, it was nice to finally go somewhere where like you actually were recruited, right? Where the coaches wanted you to, like, they were like actively so like I was very fortunate, like even from high school, like a lot of, there was a ton of Division III schools that were recruiting me, which was awesome, but it really wasn't what I was looking for. But at that stage, I was like, I think this is the best option. Like I remember the coach there at the time, like he came to every single one of my games in prep school. Like he even came the night of the Super Bowl on like on that Sunday, like drove like 3 hours to come watch us play in a tournament. And like I was like, wow, this guy really is committed to me and committed to the program. And, it's nice to go somewhere where you're wanted. After trying to get people to recruit you. So that ended up being in the Trinity College. It's part of the Nest CAC, and it's a really good school. It's a small liberal arts school. It's in the same league as like Williams, Amherst, like Middlebury, Open, Tufts, and so it's also, I think, arguably the best Division III basketball conference in the country. So I got to play against really good competition day in and day out. And so like that was a lot of fun for me. But the goal was really to go and just pursue my my passion for basketball. And I knew I was gonna get the opportunity to like play a lot of minutes and really contribute to that team. And so that was great. I also knew it was a great school, so it made it a little bit easier. But that was kind of the thought process going there. And then I don't know if the follow-up question is like what happened after that. It just it was a great year, but it made sense after that. Like financially, my sister was leaving school, so we weren't going to get as much aid. Division III, there's no scholarships offered, no athletic scholarship offered. So it was I felt like kind of at odds, trying to put my, how Indian parents are typically, they'll finance your education, right? They don't put on the burden of the kid. So I felt bad asking my parents to like, pay that much money just for me to play basketball. When I could go to Maryland for much cheaper. And I also there wasn't like a specific program at Trinity that I was like in love with academically. So it wasn't like, I couldn't even justify in my head just to play basketball to ask my parents to pay that much money. It was a great school. But then it just made sense to come back to Maryland. And that's kind of when, everyone said my basketball career is like, understand going back to Maryland means your basketball career
it was like, it felt like Trinity was kind of your last stop, right? It was it was a good run, but the dream is over. Yeah. So you do end up coming back to Maryland as a student, and like at that point were you like, all right, I'm done, like it's over?
No, I never I mean that's what everyone told me, but I think I was just stupid or arrogant or ignorant, and I was just like, until someone like literally shuts the door in my face and says it's not possible, I'm gonna keep trying. And I think that like dumb like I don't know dumb like I don't know that
naiveness.
Exactly. I think that actually helped me because I remember that summer there was also a coach that I should have mentioned that really mentored me. Jeff Reed, and he actually recruited me to go to a private school in high school that I never ended up going to. But he was a really nice guy and really took a liking of me and my passion for the game. He would come and like we would work out. In the 100-degree heat of Maryland suburb summer. Out on outdoor courts, like he would put me through like drills, like offensive, defense. Like I remember we were doing like banded slides on the concrete, like work on because we talked and he was like, hey Varun, like I come back to Maryland, like you might, you probably won't even have a shot of getting a tryout or even a look, but like, I know you really want to, and I know you're gonna put the effort in, so I'm willing to help you. But he was like, listen, like you're not gonna go to Maryland and be like, the guy, you're not gonna go put up shots. You're not gonna be playing like Russell Westbrook. Like you at Trinity, you maybe had more of a green light. At Maryland, like you might just be there to like pass the ball, or you might just be there to, and I was like, well, how can I add value to that team? And I was like, I knew I can add value with, one, this is my ability like to listen to the coach and like, run plays and like basketball IQ, but then two, like being in better shape than everyone and like picking up full court, like being scrappy, diving on the floor for loose balls, taking charges. Like that was kind of my MO. And like, I knew that was how I was going to add value to the team. And so I made sure that I was in the best shape of my life going into, that year, not even knowing if I was going to get a tryout. Like I didn't even know if they were going to look at me. But, and like, 1 minute they were like, coach, like, yeah, we might have a spot for you. The next minute they were like, no, sorry, our roster's full. And it was just like a roller coaster, like emotionally.
Right. Cause you were like, yes, maybe, no.
Yes. Yeah. And it was literally like, and I have so many stories, but there was one time where like, they invited me to come play pickup with the teams like in the summer, or not in the summer, it's like in the fall.
Like an open gym type thing.
Open gym type of thing. And it was like just the players and me. And I show up like half an hour early, right? Like to make sure like I'm, I want to show that I'm interested. And then they were an hour late. And I didn't have anybody's number except for one coach. And like, I was like texting him, calling, like saying, hey, sorry, like, did I go to the wrong gym? Like, apparently they were at like some like lift, or they had some sort of like team event before, and it got delayed. So, and the whole time that hour and a half, it felt like eternity. I was like, man, They stood me up, man. They didn't even care about me.
Yeah.
They're, you know, I was just like, man, this, like, I just felt like an idiot. I was sitting in that empty gym, like, so excited, like, I'm gonna get a chance to play with these, you know, these guys, and I just like, I almost just like broke down in tears, like, this is it, like, you know. And
so
then
was
I
that
remember,
kind of like your moment, like where you were like, this could either go one way or the other type thing?
yeah, I was like, maybe it's just not in the cards. I just remember feeling like that was one of my lowest lows. Like, man, this is like, yeah, it's like just like because I was anticipating this moment. This is what I was working for like the entire summer, my entire life, and like I was so ready, and then boom, like there's not even anybody. Like they didn't even show up. No one had the, you know, courtesy to tell me that, you know, I thought it was over. I don't know. I thought, you know, that was the end, and then luckily some guys showed up. I was able to, like, you know, I played like they play like, you know, 4 or 5 games, and then you got to kind of get to sneak into a game. Because they're like, who's this guy? Like, you know, we don't even know who he is. We're not gonna like let him play. So I remember waiting there for like, you know, 5, 6 games to go by, and then finally like some guy got tired. I was like, oh, I'll step in. Like
you were like, all right, let's go.
I remember like the first play, like Alex Len, who he's actually with the Wizards now.
Yeah.
I did like this, like, you know, we're like shimmy, and then it's my favorite move. One base, I got by whoever was guarding me. I was like, yeah, like, you know, my speed, I got this. I went up for a reverse layup, and then Alex Len just pinned me on the glass, and I was like, holy moly, like this is a different level of basketball.
Yeah, this dude is tall too.
Yeah. So I just remember being, but then, you know, even after that session, like I got to play, I was really happy. And then like I didn't hear from the coach for like 3 weeks, and I was like, man, it's like they probably, all the players are probably like, oh, he sucked, like we don't want him, like And then there was like a bunch of things going on with the roster, like, you know, someone was ineligible, and then we had like a transfer, Des Wells, come in, who Des is an awesome guy, so they weren't even sure if they were gonna have a spot for me. But the whole time I was like in the rec center, like running sprints, making sure I was in shape, like and doing this all like silently, like none of my roommates, no one even like.
So no one knew that you were doing this. This is what I wanted to bring up. Like, how did you keep it secret? Like, what was that like? You couldn't tell anyone? Like, what were you like? How?
The only people that knew were my parents, and that's it. I think it's like, and then Coach Reed, the guy that was helping me work out, like I was keeping him updated, but like no one knew that I was working, I was doing that. And like my team, my roommates were like, you know, where are you going? Like for hours that I'm like, oh, you know, I'm just going to the gym, you know, like, and the reason I didn't say anything, the reason I didn't say anything is because like, I didn't want to like be like, oh, I'm playing with the Maryland basketball team, and then like just get cut. And then it's like, you know,
and then everyone's like, bro.
I was like, I don't want to like hype myself up, and like I was so excited on the inside, but I was like, until like I get to like, you know, officially make, if I get to make team, then I'll say something. So it was funny in hindsight when I made a team, I told my roommates, they're like, bro, that's where you were going these last few, like we had we were going for, like we were like, where is he going? Like why is he coming back all sweaty? Like what's going on? Like, but yeah, no, I kept it secret, and I was just like, it was almost like a dream. I was like this is like, I'm like, we had like 6 a.m. like conditioning, and I was like waking up excited to go to conditioning. Like,
let's go.
It was like the most, it was the most like, and also it was my first time getting exposed to like how like a big time basketball program. I was so impressed with like the locker room. Like guys would have like the coaching staff, like the strength coaches would have like protein shakes for them, like food on deck, the amount of gear that those guys had. Like I was just like blown away by like how much like money and non-basketball things came with these basketball. And also like, you know, the teams were like, the guys were like celebrities on campus. So I'm like, you know, like playing with these guys who like everyone else, if my roommates saw them on like, you know, on campus, they'd be like, oh my God, that's like so-and-so. And like, I was like, you know, suiting up and playing against them. And I was like, wow, this is like, it was like
surreal. They know who I am. Like, yeah. Oh man, that's crazy. So like, what was so there was obviously like, when did you kind of find out that you were like, okay, I'm going to make the team? Like, did they just come in and tell you like, congratulations?
It's really funny you say that. So it was almost like, well, I mean, the coaches have so much things going on. Like the last thing they have, like they like, you know, they're not going to, you know, spend time with me. But I remember, I kind of like, they were like, oh, like they told me literally, I was got out of class at like 1 p.m. And I got a text from the coach, the director of basketball operations. And he was like, hey, can you make practice at 3 p.m.? And like, I was like, practice? I was like, what? And this was like preseason practice. You know, they would, you know, you get like 2 hours a week.
Because at this point you were just playing open gyms.
Like, I was just playing open gyms, running sprints. I had played pickup with the guys like once or twice, like 1 week, and then no, I wouldn't hear from them. And then I got this random text saying like, you know, can you be? And I was like, yes, I will be there. I sprinted home. I got like, you know, I sprinted my room, like got all my stuff, and like went there. I remember like he handed me like a Maryland practice jersey, and I just remember looking at it. It was just like a practice jersey, and it's just said Maryland across the chest, and I was like, this is unreal. Like, this is like
Yeah.
the best day of my life. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'll, like, can I take this home? Like, I don't know if you'll invite me back, but like, this is awesome. Like, for the rest of my life, I'll be like, yeah, I practice with the, and then, I went through one practice, and then like, I kind of just like, no one officially told me like to come back. I just kind of showed up the next day at the same time when they had the same practice.
And they didn't kick you out.
They didn't kick me out. I think they wanted me to, but they didn't like officially, they weren't like, hey, yeah. And then after like 3 or 4 practices, they were like, oh, I think per NCAA rules, we have to like, you have like a official 2-week trial where you can practice with us, and then we have to make a decision whether you're on the team or not. And then if you're not, so then like they were like, okay, can you sign this form, whatever. I was like, yeah, sign whatever you want me to sign. So I signed it, and then like 2 days later, I got an email from the Maryland athletic department saying the University of Maryland men's basketball team is requesting to add you to their roster. Please fill out these. And I was like, what? I was like, no. And I remember like being in my room getting this email and like just like yelling and screaming. Like none of my roommates were home, and I called my mom. She didn't pick up. I called my dad. He didn't pick up. I called my sister, and like nobody was there. I was like freaking out. I was freaking out. I was like, I need to tell someone. And then I just like could not believe it. That was probably like one of the best moments of my life. And then the next day at practice, at the end, like we always do like a huddle, like, at the end of practice, and coach, like, he was like, oh, by the way, guys, Varuns officially going to be added to our team. Like, you guys should congratulate. And then everyone like gave me a round of applause. And I was like, I just had like, shivers. I was like, this is, unreal.
I mean, because like that's everything you've ever worked for, right? And it just like it came to fruition finally, which is just, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I never thought I would growing up watching like Juan Dixon and Steve Blake and Chris Wilcox and those guys that won the national championship and like playing Duke, and like I never thought that I would have a chance to play at Maryland. Like, I like deep down I was like, I could play at the Division I level, like maybe like, an Ivy League school. Like that's what I thought, but never thought I'd be able to compete at at that next level.
So like yes. Oh no, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. So you say it's a dream come true, but even like more than a dream come true almost.
Yeah. So I mean, because you're like the local like MD kid, like you watch these guys like when you're. I mean, that's like the true Cinderella story. That's cool.
Oh my God, it was awesome.
Yeah, and like so, kind of like I was gonna ask you like when you like were grinding like to try to make the roster, like who were kind of some of the players in the NBA? Like I know you talked about Kobe's work ethic earlier. Who just, or even in college, that just like really inspired you to keep going, and like were the guys on the team just really supportive of like you trying to make the roster?
Yeah, they were really supportive. I think they were just like, I think they respected like how I like did things. Like I was like very vocal at practice. Like I try to win every single sprint. I like, was there early. I was there late putting up shots. Like I think they respected, like they saw my work ethic right away in the weight room. I came in shape, like, so I think they really respected that, and they were really nice. Like I thought I was gonna get hazed or something like that.
Yeah.
And
or they were just like gonna shun you. Or,
yeah. Because I mean, honestly, some programs, that's the culture. The star players are. They kind of run the show, and I was very lucky, that the guys that they kind of took me in with open arms, and they honestly, like, I think they were just confused. They're like, I remember at one point one of the guys was like, so like, what are you? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, where are you from? Like, where are your parents? Like, I was like, oh, I'm Indian. They're like, Indian.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, right? I mean, you're like at the time you were one of like 4 or 5 players of Indian descent in the NCAA. Like, I'm sure a lot of people like looked at you like, he's not black. Like, like I'm sure there was like a lot of, looks. So like, what was that like being kind of like a quote unquote trailblazer for like Indian Americans playing basketball?
It was awesome. I mean, I look at it like, I think I always had an underdog mentality, and whether people judge me or not, I just like, I kind of took it at, had a chip on my shoulder. But it's really funny because I think in a way maybe it helped because people look at you and I'm undersized and also like Indian, I don't look the part, and then they kind of maybe don't give you the benefit of the doubt, and then you make that first move and then you go by him or you make a nice play and they're like, oh, they're like, it's so funny. I remember at Maryland or even like in the AAU game, like tournaments, like I would make a nice move and then we're like oh dang, like I just remember hearing people like I would go right by him, like that was like my thing. Like maybe I was pretty quick, so they would be like you make that first move and they'd be like, oh, I guess this guy's for real, like he's not not playing around. Like it was really funny. I think we'd always catch people by surprise, but yeah, no, I mean, I think guys were just coaching staff, players, they weren't used to having someone of Asian Indian descent playing basketball, but I think they were just curious. Like they would ask me questions. They'd be like, they'd be like, yeah, they aren't really like, they were just curious. Like, what are you like? Tell us about your culture.
Mm-hmm.
Which was pretty cool. I
Yeah.
never felt like it was like negative energy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I mean, I know you've talked about Coach Turgeon a lot and like the coaching staff over at UMD. Like, what did they mean to you when you were like playing for them, but just also like in general? Because I know that from what I've read, like you really just love the coaching staff at Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, I have so much. I owe them so much, right? They gave me a shot, right? No
Yeah.
one would give me a shot, and they gave me a shot. And I hope I made them proud. But I really respected them as people. I think at that level, when you're coaching, when there's like millions of dollars on the line, and like you have, it's very high stakes, high pressure situation. Like every game is like a must win, right?
Right.
And the way that they handle that pressure and that stress. And still like treated the players and treated us with respect. I thought that was pretty cool. I'd heard stories from like other guys about how some of the cultures at some programs at that level are kind of toxic. And the way that they treated the players wasn't always right. But I really felt like the coaching staff, Coach Turgeon, and the guys he keeps around him we're class acts, and I think they did everything right. You also hear about like, the programs where like, there's maybe some shady stuff going on with but none of that. None of that. Yeah, I wasn't sure what I was going to see. I was like, this is a different level of basketball. But like, I think everybody, did things the right way and took pride in it. And it was really nice to see. And I think that's one thing that the players and myself really respected about.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, so like you've obviously had like the D3 experience. I feel like you've had the full college basketball experience. So like kind of compare and contrast, like what was like a D3 program versus like a really high funded Division I program like Maryland?
It's literally 9 days. We were at Trinity, our coach literally, we had a van, and he literally drove us to games. Like it was like AAU.
Yeah.
Like that was, and then like, we would get like nothing. Like our locker room was like bare, but like we didn't even have a lot. Like we shared a locker room honestly with like all the other sports teams. Like and I mean they say D3 is really just love of the game. Like you don't have any fans, you don't have any money, like into the program. You're getting it, you're not getting scholarship. Like no one really cares on campus if you're a basketball player. Like, what I'm saying? It's like it's like you're really just playing college basketball and like going through like the hard workouts and like because you love basketball.
Right.
And so Division III, Division I is like you almost don't even need to like there was guys that like I saw like in the not even just our team but other teams that like I think like even if you don't love basketball, if you're good enough to make a team, like there's so many other things that you could love about being a basketball player at like a school like that just is very exciting. Even like I know there's a couple guys that didn't even love basketball. They were good. They were really talented.
They were just very talented. Yeah.
They were talented and gifted. They didn't love basketball, but they loved maybe some of the other things that can come with being a basketball player at a school like Maryland, which is like that was nothing I ever expected, but was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, because like I've seen the locker rooms for like D1 schools, and some of them are amazing. Like I was like, wow, like these are like pro level. Like it feels like you're in a pro level, like a type NBA type team. Like it's absolutely incredible.
No, we would play tournaments in at like Capital One Arena.
Yeah.
We played at the United Airlines Center, and like we literally were in the Bulls locker room, and I was like, this is really. I saw like Jordan's retired locker. I saw like Joe Noah's, like I saw Derrick Rose, like all their stuff, and I was like, this is nice, but like honestly, our locker room is like maybe nicer. Like we have a lounge area, like it's really nice. And like I mean, we had Muscle Milk on tap, Gatorade on tap, like water, snacks, like protein bars, like just everything. It was literally like it was like a dream. It was like Disneyland, like walking into that locker room.
Yeah, because like I don't know if you've seen the Last Chance U, like the basketball edition. They released kind of a fifth season about basketball, and it's talking it's really good. They talk about it's like JUCO basketball, so it's like even less than D3.
Yeah.
So, and it's like their underfunded program and all this stuff. It's great. And like a lot of the stuff that you're saying about like Trinity kind of just reminds me of like that show, because they talk a lot about how like the coaches like drive the minivans to like and the buses to the games, and there's like 2 fans in the stands, and like it's dead quiet, and everyone's just like, what are we doing? Like, and like all the athletes throughout this whole thing just like question their like, but all of their athletes just like love the game so much, and they're like the most passionate guys. And it's just really cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely recommend Last Chance U. You should check it
Okay,
out.
yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah.
I've heard about it a couple times. I gotta check it out.
Yeah. So you were talking about earlier. You play with some ballers at UMD, Alex Len, Mello Trimble being a
Yeah.
couple. Like, what was it like, kind of practicing against these like NBA high level overseas players who like just like what separates them from like the average basketball player?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I mean, that list goes on like Jake Layman,
Yeah.
like Rasheed Suleiman, Des Wells. I mean, those guys are like elite. And I would say really, obviously skill is there. Like those are guys that I think, a lot of it is, their work ethic is 100% there. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think there is a large like genetic component in terms of like those guys are bigger, longer, stronger, more coordinated. And again, a lot of that is hard work, but there's also an element of like, genetic, gifts that they're getting, and then they take that gifts and they take it to the next level, which is great. But I think at the Division III level, you see guys that are very skilled, very talented, can shoot the crap out of the ball, very fundamentally sound, like very talented, but like they might be like 3 or 4 inches shorter, a little bit skinnier, maybe not as strong. Especially the bigs. That's the biggest difference between Division I and III. The guards are very like the elite guards in Division III are Division I guards, like without even question. They could probably start on many Division I teams.
Yeah.
The bigs are at the Division III level are good. They're just like 6 to 9 inches shorter than the bigs in Division I. That's like the difference really, is the big man. So yeah, it was amazing. And honestly, it's funny because you realize when you very, very soon when you play at that level, when there's like 10 other Division I high major players on the court or 9 others and like there's things that you can get away with, like playing pickup or playing Division III that you can't get away with Division I. Like you have to like protect the ball at all times. Like those guys, like I remember like they're like those guys are so long that they could be like super far away from you. You think you're wide open. Like, you could probably like, you think you can take a dribble, check the stands and then shoot it. And that's so open you think you are. They will block you in a second. Like they will close out like the gaps that you think are wide open, like will close much faster. Like you have to, you can't just like make a pass with like, through your chest. You have to like reach around them to make a pass. Like it's just like those little things that you can get away with, especially me being little. I think is one thing that you learn very quickly. You can't just like throw a pass over the defense because they'll jump 30 feet in the air and collect it. So
I mean, these are super athletes. Like they got all the time. That's crazy. Man, I can't even imagine. So I kind of wanted to talk about a nonprofit that you did back in Chennai. I was reading about it. It's called Hoops Creating Hope, I believe. So like, what has that meant to you to go back to India and as a basketball player and just in general, like being able to go back and kind of be like that guy for a lot of these kids?
Yeah, it meant the world to me. And shout out to Sean Jayachandran. He pulled me in. He found me and it was like, hey, would love to have you join. This is our mission. And it was like right in line with my interest. The issue was the first time he'd reached out, it was like, summer like workouts and like classes. And I was like, I can't leave for the summer. I need every single opportunity to like stay in shape and get in shape to be able to compete at this level. And then I remember he was like, okay. And then I don't know if it was that same summer or the next summer, he reached out directly to our coaching staff. And like, I also was at a place where like, I didn't want to like ask my coach for like time off. It just felt weird. I felt like I was grateful to even, be there and be so. And then the coach like, Varun, this is a no-brainer. Like, go to India, do your thing. And like, I was like, wow. Like, and so they gave me 2 weeks to go to India. And it's to your question, it meant the world. Like, growing up, I would go to India. My parents would take me to India, like, once every, 2-3 years.
Right.
And it's a different lifestyle. And almost to use basketball, something that I'm very passionate about, to give back to the community that my parents grew up in. And that's very near and dear to my heart. It meant a lot. I think basketball, like, it transcends the game, right? The lessons you can learn, like I've seen it in my life. I still, there's so much of my identity has been formed from being a basketball player. And I think, from teamwork, hard work, discipline, like things that we had talked about earlier, like to be able to use that and teach these kids like those same lessons through using basketball as a vehicle for change was, it's so gratifying and rewarding. And it is really cool because they see you and like, I think they look at me and they're like, oh, like they think they're like confused that someone that like looks like them is playing basketball.
Yeah.
And it's like they, maybe we'll see on TV and they'll see like guys that are like 6'10", like super athletic, whatever, and look a little bit different. But and then they see someone like me and they're like, oh, maybe it's possible. Maybe I can, play if I work hard. And so like that was really cool.
That's
to be able to
awesome.
give back
So
in
were
that
you
way.
just like teaching them kind of like basic fundamentals of basketball, or are you just like, hanging out? Like what was,
Yeah, so
yeah.
it was there was definitely a focus on basketball and fundamentals, but honestly it was even more than that. Like we had like leadership training sessions, like how to like we teach them about gender equity, about like doing the right thing,
Right.
just like staying in school. Like, we would encourage these things through basketball, like through like basketball conditioning, or we had like a classroom setting. And we had a lot of the kids in our camps were from like underprivileged, underserved communities.
Right.
Some of them didn't even come to camp with shoes. So even just going and like feeling the basketball for the first time, it's not like we were the purpose was never to go out there and like develop the next Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was really to go out there and just show them like, hey, like there's this beautiful game that you can learn so much from, and just kind of share our passion for it with them,
Yeah.
kind of uplifting them as well. So that was awesome.
Yeah. And I think the cool part about basketball is that it's not necessarily like there's a lot of sports out there which require a lot of financial commitment. But with basketball, like if like you were saying, like with the resources being like readily available in outdoor courts, all you really need is a ball and shoes, right? Like it's like so accessible to everybody. And I think it really just like kind of reduces, and like once you hop on a basketball court, you get people from like all different walks of life, backgrounds, everything. So it's pretty cool to like, and I think sports in general is just a great unifier in the world. And
oh
like
my God,
what you were
it's
doing.
a common language. It's
Exactly.
a common language.
Right. 100%. And this is what I argue to my friends. My friends, like, they see me like watch the Niners and the Warriors aggressively. What are you doing? Like, this is so useless. I'm like, dude, like everything in our world today, like in 2021, like everyone's so divisive over social media, politics, whatever. But I think the two great unifiers in the world are sports and music. And those are like the two things that bring people together. Like, it doesn't matter if you can't speak their language. Like, sports is almost like a universal language, which is super
Yeah. Cool. It's incredible. And 100%, I couldn't echo that even more.
Yeah. And it's awesome. So now to transition back, the biggest moment of your basketball career. Okay, I know this is. You probably knew this question was coming. So you play at UMD for a few years, but there's one moment that you're famous for, and that is your game-winning block in the NCAA tournament in the first or second round. Was it the first round?
It was the first round.
Okay, the first round against Valparaiso.
Yeah.
Take me through the sequence of events. Give me the whole story, the dramatics, everything. Where was your head at? Everything.
Oh
Give the whole story.
That whole thing. I mean, I think playing in the NCAA tournament is just like inexperience, and like it's just incredible. Like I mean, being in it is a whole nother. Just it like blows your mind. Like every second of the day is just like you're like, I can't believe I'm here. Like from the second we got to the hotel, like the hotel staff literally had like a line of like they were like celebrating as we walked in, like cheering for us, and like they had like candy. They had like Maryland's like themed like sweets, and like they have like goodie bags, and like it's just like it's such like a show. And so from the moment you step into the hotel, like everything is about this like the tournament. It's like anything you do in a game, like if that same play, if I made that like 6 games earlier, like in the regular season, like it would have been like maybe a tenth of like the notoriety of it. But like everything
this is the biggest stage in college basketball.
So it's just it's amazing. So for that, and then that game, like so that season I had been kind of in and out of the lineup, which was fine. It's just kind of how it works. And that game I remember just being like, so I mean every game I was so involved, but this game, like honestly, it didn't feel like I didn't play a minute that whole game, because I was just like up and down, like jumping up, like
on
just
the bench,
so excited,
just screaming, like
oh my God, screaming. Like I'd probably done like 1,000 squats that game, sitting up and down, like cheering. Like I was warm. I was like plyometrics, everything was done. I was ready to go. And then I remember that moment. I think like someone fouled out. I forgot who it was. And it was those guys at the Valparaiso, like I mean they were shooting really well. They had just hit like a couple threes. They clawed back in the game, and they had one possession, and someone on our team had fouled out, and coach looks down to the bench, and like so many things were happening. Like I just didn't even. It wasn't like I just feel like he just looked down.
It's like the sports movie moment.
literally, he looks down. He's like Varun, and I was like,
what?
I say that, but at the same time, like it's like a moment like this had happened in the past too, where like he'd need we want me to come in for a defensive possession or two.
Right.
So I mean immediately I knew the drill, ripped off my warm up, checked in, like didn't think twice about it. Like you don't even have a second to be nervous, because like you just react. I checked in, and just stepping onto the court was like, it's like you really feel like it's a stage, like the light, the people, like it's really incredible. And it's like I mean, and then after that, it's just kind of you go into autopilot and you do this. It's like it's the same reps you've been doing since you started, in preseason. Like, this is how you guard, this is how you play. And like, that's my MO. Like, I pressure the ball. I try to wreak havoc defensively, and then, just instincts took over, and the play just happened so fast. And the next thing I know, like, the refs would whistle, the game's over, and I was like, oh, we won. And I run over and I jump up, and one of my teammates, John Graham, like picks me up, and it's like I didn't really realize how big of a play it was until I got in the locker room. And this is the funniest thing. So the NCAA tournament, like, as soon as your coach gives a speech, whatever, 15 minutes, and the media comes in and they announce it. The coach is like, okay, the media is going to come in. Everyone go to your locker and sit down, and the media will come around. So
and did the media just crowd?
And it's funny because they walked right by Mello, they walked right by Dez, and they came right to me. Like, I was in the back of the locker room, and I was like, what is going on? Like, all the cameras in my face were like, what is going on? Like, this, I never wasn't used to this. It doesn't happen. And that's kind of when I was like, oh, maybe this was like a big deal. And then I remember my phone had blown up. Like, it literally, it died. I think that's how, like, it had probably close to full charge. The phone died, right? Like, when I picked up my phone after everything, I had to, charge it, plug it in, because it was blowing up like crazy. Friends were like, oh, this, and I was like, honestly, like, it was just like so much to take in one moment. But I was already thinking about, like, all right, we moved on. What's the next game? Like, how can we help prepare the guys and the team, and how can we get ready for the next game, which was West Virginia.
I'm sure your friends and family were going absolutely crazy. Like, they were probably like, what? Like, that's insane. Oh my Lord. Like, I remember I went back and watched the replay of the highlight, and I was just like, oh my God, I got goosebumps. I was like, wow, I'm really going to talk to this guy. This is so cool.
It was incredible. And actually at one point I was trending on Twitter, which I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
And that's what my, people were telling me. And I was like, wow, this is literally what, like I've been working for my entire life.
And you were on like ESPN, because I remember like when it happened. I remember watching the block live, and I remember seeing your last name on the jersey was Ram, and I was like, "What?" Because I was a 14-year-old kid at the time, and I was like, "No way, he's Indian, no way." And I remember just looking you up, and it was like, "Yep, he's on the Maryland roster." I was like, "Wow, that's sick." So, that's cool. I mean, that's the national stage. That's everything you could, ever dream of.
Yeah, it really was incredible. I mean, just it's just so fortunate. Again, I have so much, like, my teammates and like my coach to trust me in that situation. It was awesome. It really just, like, you can't really, you can't plan that.
It's like a movie. So, like, when you got back to campus, were you like the man of the hour? Were you one of those campus celebrities, so to speak, that you were talking about? Like, was everyone like, oh my God, there's the hero?
No. I mean, not everyone, but like it definitely. We also, like, we didn't come back until so we had lost. You play your first two games, so we played West Virginia like the day after the next. Yeah. And since we had lost, I think if we had won, it would have been a little bit bigger of a deal. But we lost, so it was we were all kind of really sad going back to campus. So, but it did kind of like, I think the Brown community at Maryland really loved it.
Yeah.
I remember going back, and like all my friends were like, we all knew you were on the team, but now like everybody knows you're on the team. Which is kind of funny.
Yeah, that is super funny. I mean, I'm sure the Brown community ate it up. Because do you still get Brown people like reach out to you and be like, hey, Varun, like, I'm, trying to like go D1 or like trying to play basketball? Like, do you get people to reach out to you on Instagram or Twitter or whatever?
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, I think about it, I'm like, wow, man, it means a lot to me, because I put myself in their shoes. Like, I remember, like, this is before Instagram, and I was in their shoes, and I was like, I wish there was someone that was like me that had done it, that I could like learn from or take advice from. And so, when folks reach out, like, I definitely want to help in any way I can. And so it does happen even now, which is pretty cool. I'm happy to help in any way I can.
And I was going to ask you, 5 years and a worldwide pandemic later, after the craziest play of your life, like, how do you reflect on it, like, with a lot of time passed?
Yeah, no, it's definitely to look back. It's like you appreciate it in the moment, but you don't really appreciate it until like now that I'm out of it. It's like, wow, it's really cool that happened in my life. I'm very fortunate, and I just try to, take that as inspiration to like whatever I do next. And we didn't really talk about it, but so after Maryland, I started at Deloitte Consulting. I've been in consulting strategy and M&A for like the last 4.5 years. And now I'll be coming to the Bay Area this August for business school. And so I was super excited about that. And honestly, it's like, I mean, a lot of my story on my application was about my journey through basketball and how it's kind of like transcended into my career and like what I want to do, what my goals are. But I think a lot of like it gave me, hope that, because for 90% of my basketball career, like I was always under no one really cared. It was just like me trying to convince people that, hey, I'm okay at this game, like give me a shot. And when I made the Maryland basketball team, then after that moment, I think it like immediately just like validated me in other people's eyes, which is like, it's nice, but it's nice because like the whole time you're trying to prove yourself, and then now like people actually should give you a little bit of respect, which is helpful. And I translate that now into like, I'm starting my career, and it's like I'm starting back at the bottom, right? And I'm just gonna grind, and like it's nice to know that maybe something in a parallel fashion could happen in my career where I can make an impact on society. And that's going to be like, how can I build up towards that? It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of time. It's like that moment, that was a couple of seconds, but there was years and years of work and background that went into preparation for that moment. So that's the same mentality I've kind of taken into my career.
That's awesome. And I wanted to kind of talk to you about some of the work that you've been up to, obviously after basketball and after everything and the crazy stuff in Maryland. So you did some work last year kind of during the height of the pandemic here in the States. Do you kind of want to talk about, it was called, I forget what it was, but basically, Connect for COVID. Do you want to talk about that and what you were, are you still doing it or?
Yeah. Okay. So Connect for COVID. So a friend of mine, Raj Singh, him and his brother had started it. Raj worked at Deloitte at the time, and we were talking, and like, I mean, I think people were just kind of in shock, like the whole pandemic, and no one really knew what to do. But we saw like, we were just wondering like, how can we help? And one thing that they saw, I think on the news one night was that like, folks were obviously with, hospitals employing these like no visitor policies.
Right.
So they, so folks, like, it was really sad. Folks were dying in isolation, like, and a lot of times they didn't have smartphones or ways of communicating with their families. And this is like the moment of their life that they probably need to communicate with their families the most. They're, sick, and who knows what the next few, days, hours, minutes will hold. And so, they saw this as opportunity to maybe get devices, and like they were like, well, we have extra devices, we can give it to them. So that's how it kind of started. And they had connections from undergrad with like medical students all across the country at these different hospitals. So they had reached out to them. They're like, hey, like if we're able to get these devices to you guys, can you give them to your patients? And that's kind of how it started. And then I got involved very early, and was like, hey, can I take this to DC. So I kind of led the DC branch of that. And I mean, we've raised, a lot of money, a lot of devices, and we're able to donate it to hospitals. And so the height of that was probably August, probably around the end of the summer. And since then, the hospitals, they've kind of gotten the pandemic hasn't gotten better, but like they've kind of streamlined the process. That they started to get funding, resources, devices. So since then, it's slowed down a little bit, but it's really interesting because now things are shooting up in India, and we're trying to figure out, hey, is there an impact that we can make in India, similar to what we were able to do here.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I mean, you're still continuing to like do amazing things, like even outside of your basketball career with like this Connect for COVID stuff. I mean, doing really important work with elderly patients when it matters. So that's amazing to hear. And one last question, I know it's super cheesy and I bet you get it all the time. It's like, what are your advice to like the young ballers out there, who are being not looked at, or, or kind of undersized, or don't have like the genetics of, these super freaks? What's your advice to them?
I would say, like, if you love it enough, you can create your own luck. And I think that's kind of what happened with me. And like, I didn't take no for an answer. And there's no waste in like working so hard that like there's nothing that bad that could come out of it. Like maybe you might not play at your dream school. You might not, but like the lessons you learn and the character you build by, in striving towards that goal, like that is a win in of itself. And that'll translate to success, whether it's in basketball, outside of basketball, I think throughout your life. And I think that's kind of what I've learned. And, I would say, like, don't be afraid to shoot for the stars, right? And this is corny. You don't be afraid to shoot for the stars. You don't know, what might happen. Like, I never thought I was going to play at Maryland. I wanted to play Division I basketball. But I knew that I was working every single day towards a goal. And I think if I hadn't been doing that, I wouldn't have ended up at Maryland, right? Playing for, playing in that moment. So I would say, and now is the best time to be, like, I had YouTube, but I didn't have as much access to, like, the like learning how to learn about the game. Like, it's so easy to watch these NBA games, to watch college games, to like watch YouTube tutorials on how to dribble, how to shoot, on Instagram, on social media. Like, it's so easy to learn, to, like, there's information overload almost. Right. And, like, take advantage of that. Like, don't expect others to like teach you. Like, go out and have conversations and try to learn and try to emulate your best players. And just, like, it's a process. And trust the process, right? Like Joel Embiid, like, you really have to enjoy the grind. Yeah. Because, again, like, that moment, that NCAA moment was like 10 seconds, but, like, I loved each and every moment of, like, grinding every single day, practice. Like, you have to really love that. And knowing that you're working towards a bigger goal, whether it's basketball or something else. So I would say, don't, and it's going to be hard. Like, there's going to be ups and downs. It's not going to be a linear journey. There's going to be ups and downs, but just stay the course. And what can you do? Like, back to what Steve Nash said, like, what can you do to, like, get outside your comfort zone and almost, like, for lack of a better term, like, hurt yourself every single day to push yourself to that next level. It's really easy to take, weeks, months, off, and recovery is super important, but be very diligent about, getting better every single day. I think that's, it's those little improvements every single day will get you to your goal.
Yeah. Love how you brought it back full circle with the Steve Nash stuff at the beginning. You could be a podcaster yourself. Think about it. But that's all I got for you, Varun. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, taking some time out of your very busy day. So much appreciated. Hello again, everyone. I hope that interview was as inspiring and amazing as I thought it was. And you guys all took something a little different from Varun's story and his rise to reaching his goals as a Division I basketball player. I think the coolest part for the interview for me is that I left the interview believing that there are going to be a lot more basketball dreams for Asian American kids all over the country coming true. And that, to me, is the most exciting part. I'm going to be linking the Connect for COVID site down below that Varun was mentioning towards the end of the interview so that you all are able to keep up with some of the super cool stuff that he's up to now after basketball. If you guys did like this interview, again, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, feel free to hit the follow button there. More awesome content is coming your way, so get excited for all the great stuff that's going to come. TikTok page. Ooh, I'm putting that out there. Let's see what happens. Anyway, comment down below your favorite part and maybe a couple takeaways that you had. Let's get the comments section rolling. I know it's been pretty dead the last couple episodes, so we're going to try to pick that up now. But feel free to follow me on the socials, Instagram, Twitter. That's all linked down below, so feel free to go check those out as well, and hit me with the follow so you can get updated on all the cool interviews that are coming up, but also some of the short form content that I'm going to be working on and I got coming your way as well. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode a lot. And until next time, and until the next episode, peace.